Hello and welcome to PlayStation Access. I'm Dave and I'm dropping by with a barrel full of Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn tips and tricks. Over 20 hours of playing, we've amassed tips to turn you from a fledgling sap into a hardy sapper. We'll cover reputation, the best weapons and skills, and general advice for kicking the gods' butts. If you're after something specific, check out the time codes in the description and give the video a like if you found it useful. Also, remember to subscribe to PlayStation Access for more helpful videos like this. Best of luck! To start with, a reminder, while Flintlock the Siege of Dawn will have you teleporting around the world at platforming pace, speed can be your undoing. The combat in this Souls-like requires a bit of patience. We learned quickly that you can't tank your way through encounters. As with most Souls-adjacent games, some standard rules apply. Holding block to observe and learn enemy attack patterns is always time well spent. You'll begin to learn telltale animations that give away unblockable red attacks, and soon learn easier moves to parry. Edging towards enemies to catch their eye and lead them away from the pack is a good way to get one-on-one time with them. That said, there are also ways to help you expect the unexpected. Clicking in R3 locks onto enemies, but you can also use this to help spot enemies hiding in bushes or blending in with the background scenery. Just get into the habit of clicking it when you enter murky territory. Likewise, when in claustrophobic interiors, it's worth walking around with your guard up to keep you defended from surprise attacks hiding around corners. Reputation is Flintlock's equivalent of Souls, needed to upgrade both abilities and weapons. The twist is the inclusion of a reputation multiplier. Performing a variety of moves drives the multiplier up, letting you choose when to cash it in. One easy tip is to use safe, easy moves to drive the multiplier up. Performing a slide outside of combat adds a basic 5%. There's another 6% for performing a perfect reload with your secondary weapon, and there's 5% for performing a rift jump. If you've got the ammo, scoring a headshot with the musket is worth 12%, and a charged pistol kill is worth 8%. It's worth finding low-threat enemies just to pick them off and add that extra 20%. Remember, there's no ticking clock on the multiplier. If you've just finished a fight, you can backtrack to find the nearest rift point to get that extra rift jump multiplier. The real trick is knowing when to bank reputation and when to risk it. As a general rule, we recommend banking it before approaching groups of unfamiliar enemies to avoid getting bonked by a new attack. And remember that where you die is where you'll have to go to reclaim your dropped reputation. If you feel a battle going south, use powder jumps to retreat to safer ground. It's vital you drop your reputation somewhere you can easily pick it up on your next attempt. On your journey around the world, you'll find a lot of conscript collectibles. These are buttons, plates, and aglets that are found attached to the bones of the formerly living and can be identified by the light shining off them. The game doesn't explain it, but these collectibles can be traded in for extra reputation. Go to the menu, then inventory, and select the soldier's satchel. You can then hold X to trade them in to be showered with financial praise. Buttons are worth 150, plates get you 350, and aglets bring a whopping 1,000. Don't feel squeamish about ransacking a fellow soldier's corpse, it's merely some liberation for the greater good. Now you have reputation, what abilities should you spend it on? One early pistol skill worth buying is Charged Shot. It can kill many common enemies with a single shot from a safe distance and is a safe technique to bump up the reputation multiplier. Given the verticality of the world, we also recommend Destructive Descent, an aerial attack that applies stun and damage upon your superhero landing, meaning you can get the drop on enemies and do more damage than a regular attack. Given the many benefits of the pistol, it's also worth working towards unlocking the extra shot as soon as you can. To punch up melee combat, two essential early steel upgrades are Charged Attack, letting you hold R1 for a more hefty swing, and Deflection, which blocks incoming projectiles and returns them to sender. The generous timing on this one makes it easy to kill all ranged enemies with their own projectiles, freeing up pistol and musket rounds for thinning out more dangerous melee attackers from afar. One utility feature worth mentioning is the ability to unlearn a skill to get some reputation back. Perfect for those who easily get buyer's remorse or have changed their build enough to render an ability less useful. Just be aware that you will not get the full reputation refund, even if you speak to the manager. Along with abilities, you want to equip melee weapons for any situation. We suggest a weapon for armored enemies, the ones with the grey health bar, and something for flesh. The Judge's Hammer, which you find here in the city of Rit, has an armor-penetrating status effect, so it's great for the former. For fleshier types, we're partial to the Harbinger's Axe. An early pickup, it does less damage than Nor's core axe, but the added fire effect makes up for it over time. That pair of items saw us all the way through to the end of the game. There aren't heaps of weapons to choose from, but it's still wise to be cautious with crafting materials early on. By all means, pump resources into Nor's default weapons. The pistol and the musket prove useful throughout, but it's worth getting getting through the first map to amass more weapons and see what's on offer before cashing in all that wood and iron. Over in armor, we juggle between different sets based on when we need different synergy bonuses. The Sapper set earns more black powder when you attack an enemy, which is useful for cautious gunslingers, but the Sunderer set teleports you when dodging, letting you breathe for a few more frames when you're up close and personal. The Sapper set is best for general use when you're free to retreat and use those projectiles. The Sunderer is best for intense boss fights in more enclosed arenas. Note that you can also equip different clothes, but the only bonus they provide is self-esteem based. Flintlock's long-range weapons mark it out from many Souls-likes and can really help you raise your chances of survival. If you took our advice and unlocked Deflection, you'll be able to take down long-distance enemies with parries rather than using ammo. To make the best use of ammo you do have, you should aim for critical weaknesses. The cursor will turn red when you've targeted one. Also, watch out for explosive barrels, a great way of taking down whole clusters of enemies. One item that is really useful for this approach is the Dragoon's Pauldron. This gives you 2 secondary weapon bullets for every perfect reload, turning 3 musket headshots into 6 before you have to camp to restock. Swap it in as a piece of armor only when you need it for sniping, then swap it out when it's time to get up close and personal. Your fox pal Enki is also a huge help. To speed up the charging of his hard-hitting withering specials, we suggest buying the Rend Spirit ability early on. By holding triangle, you levitate enemies, and holding them there recharges the withering gauge really quickly. You should also invest in Taunt and Restrain, which let him distract enemies in combat. It's great to take the heat off of you in group fight, but will also kick in one-on-one fights as bosses expose their backs when they try to deck the little fox. You'll eventually be able to assign extra cursed stones to Enki's attacks too, which help temporarily apply status effects like damage over time or nerfing enemy damage. We recommend the Ruby's Curse of Ruin, which reduces enemy armor value and applies stun, very helpful against the big boys. Prime attacks are key to eating through boss health bars and removing armor from common enemies. An enemy's prime bar will only rise when it's inflicted with Enki's Curse of Death status effect, applied by his triangle button attacks. Try to avoid spamming these all at once and mix them in with your combos so that you are always adding to the prime bar. Shock grenades are also great for building up the prime bar, great against harder armored enemies and crowds as they also apply damage to a wide area like a regular grenade. Note that the bar will go down slowly if you or Enki stop attacking, but it doesn't deplete rapidly enough to warrant risky plays. As with all the combat, take your time and try to focus on individual enemies when you need to. Flintlock is happy to push you along the critical path, so make sure you take the time to properly explore environments. The world is a lot more vertical than it may first seem, and upgrade materials, conscript items, and equipment chests are often hidden high above. Take a moment to stop and look up, and you'll often see strips of white cloth that the designers use to denote places you can climb. Use explosive jumps to reach these higher areas and clean them out. Also, the dual sense will vibrate when a teleport skull is nearby. These can lead to loot or open up easy shortcuts to higher ground, making it easier to backtrack for hidden goodies. Speaking of backtracking, remember you can fast travel via the menu to take even bigger shortcuts, and that once you reach the second map, you can still return to the first by talking to Baz at camp. Finally, do not ignore Sebo, the geometry-based strategy game loved far and wide. It's always worth playing new contenders for the reputation prize. By hovering over the map icon, you can see if you've beaten them already. There's no instant win technique, sadly, but when attacking, try to get the coins in the center of the hexagonal group of triangles, as it gives you more freedom to form a rift above or below without your play being blocked. You'll find special ability coins in village wells throughout the world, but you don't have to use them. Sometimes having extra turns is better than having fancy pieces. If you do choose to use them, we recommend the coin that lets you swap places with adjacent enemy coins. These are great for unblocking the board. For defending, don't be ashamed of cheesing the attack AI. If you get into a good defensive position, you can indefinitely move one piece between 2 spaces to run down the turn counter. It's a perfectly legal move, even if it does make you feel a little guilty. And those are our tips and tricks for Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn. Enki willing, we hope that you've gotten a better grip on the game and around Nor's titular pistol. If any of these tips helped you out, then let us know in the comments below, and please share your own for other struggling sappers. Anyway, we're off to go and shoot some more spiders in the face. See you again soon!